Hey everyone, Kilted here. Look, this one's going to be set up a little bit different. I'm going to have to do everything on my cell phone, so not as much of that high-tech editing that I'm really good at. Not. Um, but the main reason is my computer's set up in the back. It's raining pretty hard, and the audio is absolutely garbage back there. But anyways, I had someone reach out to me yesterday that is wanting to get into gunsmithing and that kind of thing. And I know I've done a few videos on this, but this is going to be the video that whenever somebody asks me, I'm just going to refer to this video. So if you don't want to listen, I completely understand. If you do, great, wonderful. Let's kind of enjoy this ride. So first off, where to start, really? Uh, there's one thing that everybody needs to understand, and that is not everybody has the mindset to become a gunsmith. Just like not everybody has the mindset to be a carpenter, to be a mechanic, to be a welder, things of that nature. Okay? In fact, I had a very good friend of mine who was a mechanic, still is a mechanic. And his thing is he liked collecting 1911s and he wanted to do basic maintenance upkeep because he was moving completely across the country. And so I tried to show him things like remove extractors, change out your trigger bow or your whole trigger assembly, really, how to replace the three-fingered spring, things of that nature. We got about halfway in, and he's sitting here looking at me going, I might need to find a gunsmith I trust up there, or I'm just going to ship everything back to you because this is confusing the hell out of me. And I laughed because I looked at him and I was like, dude, I have seen you take an entire car's engine apart, okay, and have it sprawled out across your garage floor, and have to stop with that project and start working on somebody's air conditioning and have parts strewn out for it. And you're able to sit here and go, oh, well, that's a 11 millimeter screw. That part goes to this, that go. And I says, but this is too complicated for you. And he's like, shut up. Just shut up, man. But it's not to be insulting. It's our brains work differently. Okay. So that's the first thing. Now, how are you going to figure out if you have the mindset for that? Well, there's a couple ways. Okay. First off, I would go to a local gunsmith and just flat out, hey, can I apprentice with you? Okay. Spend 6 months with them, a year, you know. And that's not coming in every single day, working 8 hours a day. That's an apprenticeship is kind of on your time kind of thing. Okay. So that's the first thing. Now, if you fall into the situation like I was to where there wasn't really a local gunsmith, then we all have access to the internet. And there is tons of great information out there, but there's also tons of bad information. Well, how do you know which is which? And that brings me up to the second one. You're going to have to start tearing stuff up. Plain and simple. I know it sucks, but you're going to have to start tearing stuff up. Me personally, it was an infield. I had no way of replacing the extractor, right? And I spent weeks on forums and that kind of thing until I finally got a hold of someone who was able to help, and I was able to fix it. Then that kind of turned into other friends wanting me to do work for them and that kind of thing. And it was honestly, I'd have to sit here and figure it out. You know, I had to tear stuff up. I had to put it back together, go, nope, something still ain't right, tear it back up, start all over again. Okay? So understand that. And also kind of understand your limitations. So what I would always do starting out is like one was a Mauser. Okay. Once again, I liked shooting, I liked collecting, but working on them was difficult. Um, but I sat here and just spent the hours researching, trying to figure out, so on and so forth. And come to find out, it was just a broken firing pin, and it was remarkably easy to replace that. But that was because I spent the hours before even touching the gun figuring out as much as I could. So, yeah, that's another way of doing that. Now, let's sit here and say that you've got the mindset for it. You've got the mindset, you really kind of enjoy it, so on and so forth. It's terrifying and exciting all at the same time, right? Just like when you're learning anything new. So now you actually need to go get education. Now, education can be apprenticing with a gunsmith. Okay? That's good and bad at the same time. Good thing is, gunsmiths are going to know little tips and tricks along the way that they can show you. But it can take a lot longer, and you will never have all of their knowledge. It won't happen. Okay, that's not to be mean or ugly, but for instance, I work on a lot of the old military firearms, and I have friends of mine who are gunsmiths who don't. You see what I'm saying? So they send it to me. And then when I have questions about some of these newer firearms, like I can't even remember. Oh, some of the Kel-Tecs that came out, the shotgun. I've only worked on one of them. I can't even remember what it was called. But yeah, I reached out to him because that's something that he works on a lot of. And yeah, we got it fixed up. So that's one option. The one I really kind of push, though, is to go to an actual school to get an education. Now, if you're a young adult, man, woman, I don't care, but you have no kids, you're unmarried, there's no one that really depends on you, um, I would highly suggest to go to a brick and mortar school. I know there's one out in Colorado. It's a couple of years long, so on and so forth, but you learn everything. You'll learn bluing, case hardening, machining, checkering, woodworking, basic repairs, it's everything. Okay? Everything. Okay? Now, that is a large upfront cost, depending on where you're at. If you live right next to the school, then great. You don't have to worry about rent. You don't have to worry about, moving. You don't have to worry about all that fun jazz. But you still have to worry about tuition, tools, supplies, food, that kind of thing. Okay? So that's something to keep in mind. Now, let's say that you are kind of tied down. Okay? That's understandable. Hell, I was married, full time job. I had a pretty decent career, um, so on and so forth. And when I first started, I wanted this to be kind of a part time weekend thing. You know what I mean? But it just kind of evolved into me going completely full time. Okay. Now, there are several schools that you can go through. Me personally, I am a huge fan of the American Gunsmithing Institute, or AGI. Now, what I liked about it is it was on my schedule. So if I just got done working, 4 12-hour shifts as a police officer, and it's finally my day off, I didn't have to work on it if I didn't want to. And there were several times to where I'm sitting there going, I need to do this, but I also need to decompress and really worry about my mental health. So I'm going to go do this instead. Okay. I know that the fellow that asked me, and I get asked a lot, is about SDI, or Sonora Desert Institute. I have not been through SDI. I am going to possibly tag another creator, McIntyre, the Kilted Gunsmith. Um, he went through SDI. He is in Pennsylvania. He is currently trying to start up everything. Like, I know he's working on his shop and that kind of thing, actually getting it built and so on and so forth. So I'm going to defer to him on most of the questions from about SDI. Now, with all that being said, I still have an opinion about SDI. And it's not good and it's not bad. Me personally, to be a gunsmith, I don't see a point in writing essays and being all grammatically correct and this, that, and the other, so on and so forth. I don't see a point in it. Okay? I've sat here and have written up contracts for clients, so on and so forth, to where, yeah. And I don't have a college degree. I went to college. I hate computers, so I got out of it. Okay? So, yeah, that's something that I'm going to have to, everything else, I'll have to defer to him. What I will say with AGI is if you become a student with AGI, there is also another organization that you're in, and that is called the Gunsmithing Club of America, or the GCA. And all of that in total is very useful. Okay. So with AGI, if I had a question about something, I could legitimately sit here and call up my advisor or call up the instructor themselves and go, hey, this is what I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around. I'm not understanding. Can you explain it a different way? And they'd be more than happy to help you with that. Okay. Now, also, when I went through AGI and I paid for your first level, by which everything's broken up into 3 levels with AGI, you have level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1 is gunsmithing. Level 2 is a lot of your machining, and level 3 is kind of a master's course, okay? But this is just an old book that I was given, right? It's just on a spiral, right? And in here, I'm going to flip to where I don't have a lot of... All right. So in here, they have kind of a brief description, right? This one's the Remington 740 and 760. And then I sit here and I flip the page. And here's a schematic of it. Okay? The schematics are invaluable to gunsmiths. Just understand that. You're going to collect these things. Okay? But to go along with the book, you were also given DVDs. Okay? So like this one is on pistols, the high standard 22, the Smith & Wesson 422, the Ruger standard automatic, the Beretta 380, Colt Woodsman, and the Ruger Mark series. Okay? That's just on one DVD. Now, understand that now they have it to where everything's online. So you don't have to have the DVDs. But in my opinion, the DVDs are invaluable. Okay? Because from time to time, I will get something in that I don't work on a lot of. Okay? And I'll be honest. I'll sit here and say one that was just here recently. It was the Winchester Super X Model 1, little 12 gauge semi-automatic shotgun. Customer states that it loads and fires fine, but it's not extracting, and it's not, of course, not ejecting. And I sat here at first, thought it was just a cleaning. I cleaned it, test fired it. That wasn't it. I then started looking at the gas system and everything else. I'm going, man, everything just looks right, So I kept going, kept going, kept going. Finally, I broke down, and breakdown's kind of a bad term, but yeah. And I have a little portable DVD player that I set up on my workbench, and I put in the Winchester video. Okay. And I sat here and watched it. Yeah, could I have been working on other stuff? Yeah. But this was bugging me. And what the whole issue was because I overlooked one little bitty thing. That little bitty thing was a rubber gasket, an O-ring. Okay. And I sat here and felt like an absolute idiot. Okay. But I had the videos. So it took me through that. And I was able to sit here and look, no, I've got the gas system set up correctly. The trigger's fine, the bolt spring pressure and everything. All that's fine. What am I? Oh, that's what I'm missing. And I was able to put it together and it shot beautifully. I re-cleaned the gun, called the customer. Okay. Now, when stuff like that happens, I didn't charge him for the hour or so of me trying to tinker and figure it out and watching a video. I didn't charge him that. That's kind of one of those bought and paid for. But I bet you if another one comes in, I'll be looking for that rubber O-ring. So that's why I like the DVDs. I like actually having the videos. Now, talking about the club, Gunsmithing Club of America. There's a lot of good information on it. And you can't join that club unless you're actually a student or you are a gunsmith. Okay? So if you go on there and ask for advice, you're going to get good advice, not just from, Jim Tom down the street who thinks super glue, WD-40, and duct tape fixes everything with a gun. Okay? And yes, I get those in. So on it, I have gone on the GCA website and found tooling that I needed. I've found advice. There is one segment on there that I really and truly enjoy, and that is over the shoulder. Okay. It is a video series of Mr. Ken Brooks, who is one of the instructors out at AGI. And it's in his shop. He still runs a legitimate gunsmith shop. Okay. And he sits here and kind of, all right, this is what the customer states, so on and so forth. He wants it re-blued, but I don't do bluing. And this, that, and the other. Okay. And he takes you through his process. What makes him go from one thing to the next. So that's pretty much everything that I've got to say about schooling. Okay. Just do your research, actually talk to people that have gone through it. Once again, I'm going to try to tag my buddy McIntyre to talk to you about SDI. I don't know anybody who's gone through the Modern Gunsmithing Institute, I think is what it is. I don't know. But I'm a huge fan of the American Gunsmithing Institute. Okay, that's what I like. Talk a little bit more about the schooling. Because another thing that I really enjoy is I've been graduated from there for years now. I can still sit here and call Mr. Brooks, for instance, and say, hey, I have this problem. Can you please help me? And over the phone, he'll sit here and talk me through it. And then if we still can't figure it out, he offers to have it, shipped to him. He work on it, give you a full report, and send it back. Of course, you have to pay for time and shipping and all that fun stuff, but that's an option. Okay. Next up is, what are some basic tools that you need? That is really simple and complicated at the same time. So what I'm going to do is cover the simple stuff. So right off the bat, hammers, okay? And you see I put plural on there because you need to have multiple. Most gunsmiths do most of their work with a 2 ounce hammer. I don't. I do a 4 ounce hammer, but it's also on how you hold the hammer, right? Depends on the force, and 4 ounces is just what feels good to me. With a 2 ounce, I don't feel like there's anything in my hand. You need, a good. I use ball peen hammers. There's some people that use what are they called? They're the body shop ones, to where they're square and flat. I can't remember what that is. You need a good brass hammer, and you need one that's made out of the polymer. There's several different polymers out there. They're listed as non-marring hammers or whatever. Those are the three that I'm going to sit here and tell you that you need. Do not use like a claw hammer. Okay? You just have a lot harder time, because those heads of those hammers are not flat, right? They're kind of dome shaped, just slightly. And with gunsmithing and that kind of thing, you need flat. You also need to understand hammers need to have a polished face to them, okay? Because if the hammer has all these nicks and gouges and that kind of stuff, when you impact it onto a piece of steel, a gun, it's going to transfer those marks to the gun. So keep them polished, okay? I also prefer wood handles, just because there's several times, like working with revolvers, to get these side plates off, I'll actually use the wood handle to tap, 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 and tap those off. So hammers, that's something that you really need. You don't have to spend a lot of money on them. Me personally, once again, I like Grace hammers. That's who I like. I like their punches as well. We're going to get to that in a minute. And they're not really expensive. I want to say they're 20, 30 bucks. You see what I'm saying? But a good hammer is one that's going to last you many, many years. Okay? And that's kind of the thing to take away with all tools. Yes, I have some really cheap tools back there. I'm not going to lie. One of the belt sanders that I have is a Harbor Freight Special. Okay? But I use it to take large chunks off. When it really gets down to the final nitty gritty, I have another one for that. So there's that. Next up is screwdrivers, right? I am a huge fan of Brownell's Magnatip. Now, I'm not sponsored. Y'all know this. I don't take sponsorships. Okay? But Brownell's Magnatips, I love these. This entire set was, I think, because I've had it for a little while now, I think was like close to 200 bucks with shipping and everything. But a couple things that I like is, one, it's magnetic, right? So, doop, it's not going to come out. I love that. Well, a lot of screwdrivers do that. I get that. We're not so much worried about the handles as we are the bits. Okay? So you see I've got a bunch of them that come with the set. Well, why can't I just go to Walmart and pick up a set and be done with it? Because the ones at Walmart, this will show off better, are going to be wedge ground, okay, for like mechanic shops and things of that nature, okay? What you actually need is parallel ground, power of the white forehead. You see the sides pretty much come up and then get parallel and then square off at the top, okay? Hollow ground, parallel ground, these are the screwdrivers that you need. That way, when it goes into the slot, it fills up the slot completely and you can get 100% torque. Whenever you see these firearms with screw heads that are damaged, it's because they went in Granddaddy's toolbox and got that good old Craftsman that he also uses to open up paint cans and, maybe dig out dirt from a horse's hoof, right? and decided to take a gun apart. Yeah, so it tears them up. Okay, so a good screwdriver set is what I'd recommend. Now, if you don't want one because you're just starting out, this big Wheeler makes a really good one. Um, that it's a good set and it's a lot cheaper. Um, so yeah, that's that. Now, I don't just use the magnet tips though. I have gone and gotten stuff out of the toolbox, but this is a Phillips head. And what I'll use this one for quite a bit is removing butt pads. This is what I'll use 9 times out of 10. It's small. I can really get in there and torque it, which I can get into this if need be. But whenever you insert into a rubber butt pad, your shaft really needs to be lubricated. I use soap. Now with the magnet tip set, they've got a long one, right? And it's about the same length. No, it's actually a little bit longer, right, than the one that I use every day. But the reason I like this one more is because it has the fatter shaft on it than this one does. And this one will kind of wiggle around too much for my liking, okay? So you'll sit here and kind of figure out what tools work for you, okay? Next up is punches. You need quite a few. Start off with steel, and you can get the brass ones and even the nylon ones later, okay? But here are a few that I've just grabbed. One I'm actually just now noticing that I need to straighten. But first up, roll pins, okay? You see it's got the little nipple there at the top. This is a roll pin punch, okay? Once again, these are made by Grace. Yep, Grace USA. But this will prevent you from damaging roll pins, either putting them in or taking them out, okay? If you're dealing with a lot of these modern firearms, AR-15s, things of that nature, that have roll pins, and you don't have a roll pin punch set, say that 12 times fast, you're going to tear stuff up and you're going to cost yourself more money in the long run. Now, what I also have is this is an old broken punch that I've kind of narrowed down on my lathe, but this is just a starter punch. You can buy these, okay? So it just has a very small shaft, and that is just enough to really get the pin that we're pushing out started. Then you have your standard punches, which once again, I got to straighten this one. I didn't notice it before I started filming. These punches, once again, you can get in multiple different lengths, and these are to finish driving that punch through. Always, always, always start your pins with a starter punch, okay? And lastly is a staking punch. So a lot of people sit here and know it as, you know, on your gas key for your AR-15, it's staked in. This is the punch that I'll actually use. I'll sit here and line it up. It's made of a hardened steel. This one's actually from Snap-on. And line it up, give it a good whack. So yeah, this one's not for removing pins. It is strictly for staking. Now, to go back to the AGI thing, whenever you start in AGI, they're going to send you a small punch set, a couple of hammers, a cleaning mat, and a few other things, okay? So keep that in mind as well. You might not necessarily need to go out and buy all this stuff and then purchase. You see what I'm saying? So yeah. Now, what we're going to get into is if you want to do more specific work, okay? So let's say you want to do general gunsmithing and Cerakoting, okay? Well, with Cerakote, you're going to need, of course, an air compressor, regulators. You're going to need a spray booth. You're going to need an oven to bake it on. You're going to need graduated cylinders and scales and that kind of thing to measure out the paint. You're going to have to do a lot more, okay? But that's tooling that is specialized. Now, how much can that cost? I don't really know in total. You can build you a spray booth relatively cheaply. Ovens, I have seen people take electric smokers, brand new, and use them for their Cerakote oven. I say brand new because if you get a used one, it's going to have grease and oil and grime and that kind of thing, and it can be a booger butt to clean, okay? But for instance, just my Atwater spray guns, I think I paid $150, $200 a piece for them. So yeah, but that's a little bit more specialized stuff. For basic general gunsmithing, you don't need it, okay? But you can get by if you need compressed air in your gunsmithing shop. You can get by with like one of those little pancake ones, okay? Not for Cerakoting. Trust me, I've tried. Didn't work out real well because my big air compressor went down right in the middle of a job. We're not going to discuss that. So, or let's say you're getting more into like the checkering, the woodworking, that kind of thing. Well, you're going to need chisels. You're going to need hammers. You're going to need the barrel channel scrapers. You're going to need checkering tools. You're going to need, you see what I'm saying? Once again, you don't need chisels for most general gunsmithing. But if you get into the woodworking aspect of it, you will. Then if you want to sit here and decide, hey, I want to work on 1911s. That's my thing. I'm going to work on 1911s. Okay, you're going to sit here and buy a bunch of specialized jigs and tools and things of that nature, okay, for working on 1911s. Okay. In fact, I don't specialize in 1911s, but yet I still go out and buy some of those tools because I'll have a job come in. Like the last one that I had, his grip bushing was not staying staked in, so I had to go in and stake it again. So, yeah, and that requires a special tool. Now, granted, that special tool wasn't that expensive. I think it was under $30. But when's the next time I'm going to use it? Right? So, yeah. And I'm trying not to let you get overwhelmed or anything like that, okay, when it comes to talking about all of this stuff, because a lot of it you don't need. Once again, you don't need chisels. You don't need an air compressor. You don't need this. You don't need that. If you have it, it does open up what you can do for work, and work means more money, right? But don't feel like just to open up your doors, you have to have all this stuff, okay? So, after that, where? Okay, where can I become a gunsmith? Okay? So, my first question to you is, do you want to have a gun store? If you do, then let's work on getting the gun store and then worry about the gunsmithing next, right? Just being honest, okay? Because a lot of people will come into a gun shop and will see something but go, oh, well, I wish it was, drilled and tapped for a scope already. Then you can sit here and say, oh, but our gunsmith, and take it right back into the back and drill and tap and all that fun stuff. Then you're getting money twice. So he's already paid for the gun. Now you're doing the work and you're paid for your work, okay? But that might not be an option. That wasn't an option for me because there's too much gun shop competition where I'm at. In a 20-mile radius, I think there is, well, not 20-mile, 20-minute radius, probably 10 plus places that sell guns. So having another one didn't really make a lot of sense. Um, so then next up is there a gun shop that you can talk to and maybe work for them? Okay. I know a lot of gunsmiths that do it this way, to where they're pretty much given a shop in the back. People up front drop off, what's needed, fill out all the paperwork, all that fun jazz. It gets sent to the gunsmith in the back. Gunsmith gets done with it, sends the paperwork back up front. The up front staff deals with the customer 100%. Okay? I know a lot of them that do that. There's nothing wrong with that. Because what's the great thing about it is, if you have no work, then you might be able to sit on your butt and do nothing and draw a paycheck. Downside of it is you're working for someone else. If your dream is to not work for someone else, then that might not be an option. So you don't want to open up a gun shop. You don't want to work for somebody else. So that means you're going to start your own shop, like what I did. Okay? So there's a couple of things you need to look at. Okay? First up is, do you want it in town or out of town? There's pros and cons to it. Pros to having in town, a lot more foot traffic. Okay? A lot of these cities and towns have like a development center or whatever that will advertise for you. You have to pay them dues or whatever, but they'll advertise for you. Downside to that is, where are you going to test fire? Most cities and towns will not allow you to shoot firearms in the city limits. So that means you're now going to have to take the gun somewhere else. So that's, if you've got a spot a mile outside of town and it's only 5-minute, drive to it, great. But if you're having to drive 20, 30 minutes one way to go out and test fire and then drive 20 or 30 minutes back, that could be a problem. Then you also have to deal with, extra taxes, things of that nature. Good news, though, is, since you're in town, if someone were try to break into your shop, you're right there in town. So response should be fairly quickly. Okay? Now, out of town. I'm out of town. I'm in a rural area. I am on a main road, but I'm still outside of a town. So the pros to it is test firing. Okay? I've got plenty of property out here. I've got a good berm. I can go out here and test fire stuff pretty much whenever I want. There's a whole little thing about not shooting on Sundays. We're not going to get into that. But the bad side of it is, I have to give people directions how to get here. Okay? Now, luckily, I work well with a lot of the gun shops near me, to where if somebody walks in with a gunsmithing question, they just hand them my card and we go from there. Okay? But there are still just a number of people who, in fact, I had a gentleman come in earlier today that sat here and was like, I did not know that you were here. I've been trying to find a gunsmith for 6 months. I didn't even know you existed. I finally asked a friend who told me that there was one in Sturgis, and I had to Google, and I found you, and that's, that part kind of sucks, being 100% honest. But I am 100 yards from my house, so my commute is wonderful. So, yeah, there's also less taxes that I have to pay because I'm out in the county rather than the city, so on and so forth. So you have to weigh your pros and cons when it comes to that. So now the last little bit of this is, how big of a shop do you need? That is debatable. What I will sit here and say is, in my experience, I am currently in a 10 by 10 room. 80% of the gunsmithing that I do, I could do in this room. Well, Kilton, if you have that, then why did you build such a big shop? Well, I wanted a lathe. Do you have to have a lathe to do gunsmithing? Nope. You can farm a lot of that out. You know, if you've got a machine shop that's willing to thread barrels and that kind of thing, you can twist the barrels off, send it to them. They send it back to you. You get the headspace gauges and everything right. Screw the barrel back onto the receiver. But I like doing things in house. So there's that. I have sonic cleaners. They take up some space. I have mini lathes. Mini lathes are absolutely perfect for when, I break one of these punches and need to make a new starter punch. I have some that were my mentor's punches that he made to where you can unscrew the punch head and screw in another one. So if one of those breaks, I can just make another one, right? I've had guns come in to where they're missing pins. Having a little mini lathe, I can crank those pins out pretty quickly. Do you need a mini lathe? No. Do you need a mill in your shop? No. I do, because it's helpful. You can get one of these little drill presses to do all your drilling and tapping and that kind of thing, and there's nothing wrong with that as long as you know how to keep everything square. Okay? So yeah. So that's why I wanted a bigger shop. I do my Cerakoting and that kind of thing, and honestly, with the square footage I have, but which is just over 1,500, I'm out of room. Being 100% honest. There's some other equipment that I want, but I don't have anywhere to put them. You know what I mean? So that's something that I'm looking at in the future, is possibly expanding this place. So yeah. But legitimately, if you want to do gunsmithing as a home-based business, which you can do it in your garage. What I just recommend is you do it in a dedicated room. So if you've got, a 4-bedroom house, but you only got, your wife, 2 kids, so the 4th bedroom is kind of nothing, you can do it in there, right? As long as your HOA and that kind of thing don't have a problem with it. But that's getting into the FFL stuff. I prefer to have a separate building, mainly because I don't like people in my house. I'm a hermit. Plain and simple. People know, friends and family of mine know they need to call before showing up at my house. Okay? Because that's just the way that I am. I don't want somebody's muddy shoes walking across the floor of my house. Now in here, it's concrete floor. Whoop-de-freaking-do. Right? But just think on that kind of thing. Now, would I recommend a shed out back? No, just because it's not going to be as secure. Okay? Something else is, no matter whether you have a separate building, a room in your house or whatever, you're going to need to get security cameras. The ATF does not require it, but I'm telling you, okay? And you're going to need secured storage for the firearms. Because I was shocked when I got my FFL and found out, the feds just require you to put them somewhere. You could honestly just pile them up in a closet, and they're fine with that. To me, that's not secure. So, yeah. Now, once again, 10 by 10 is really all you need to do 80% of the stuff. It's when you start getting into Cerakoting, doing a lot of machine work, welding, things of that nature, that you're going to need more room. one of the pieces of equipment that I'd really wish that I had the room for is a stock duplicator. I just don't have the room for it because I get stuff in from time to time. Like I had an LC Smith shotgun come in, but stock was destroyed. There was no real fixing it. But if I had a stock duplicator, I could sit here and take the stock off, kind of super glue in parts and that kind of thing to get it really stinking close, and then start the duplicator and it would cut another one. So, but anyways, I know it's been a long video of me just kind of sitting here, my big giant ugly face, you watching. But if you have any other questions, let me know in the comments below. Let me know in an email, right? Just contact me through the website, whatever else. I'll try to help you as much as I can. Because gunsmithing is dying, okay? And it is sad because the old guys that used to do it, just like here next to me, fell about half hour, 45-minute drive one way. He moved. Another guy just north of me died. Another guy just to the east of me moved, retired, wanted to be closer to the grandkids. I get it. Okay? So now that's just me. Now, a lot of you are going to sit here and go, well, that just means you get a whole lot of business. Yes. Okay? And I'm not complaining about that. But I also like competition. Because that's how the market is set, is by competition. Okay? So, yeah. Anyways, I hope y'all have enjoyed this. I hope y'all have possibly learned something. And once again, this is going to be a video that I'm going to keep records of. And if somebody else asks me how to start or where to start, I can just email it to them. So, yeah, as always, y'all have a good one.